Right guys, I'm here at the Daiwa trade show, this year's trade show here in Birmingham, and I've just recently, 2 days ago, got back from the 11th World Feeder Fishing Championships, which was in Belgium. Now, those that have obviously possibly seen my Facebook page, we've had updates going on. What I want to talk about is the 2 days, the two actual match days, not leading up to it, just the two match days, because I think there's a few things that happened that would be quite important and nice to tell you. So, day one's draw for the team, because obviously it's a team event, team of 5. The actual draw's a matrix, so you draw an envelope and the 5 pegs are in the envelope. First thoughts, some good, majority of them not so good, but obviously it's a 2-day event, and what was quite interesting, which doesn't always happen in World Championships, is that because there was only 23 teams, it's a full section for points. Now, which is quite important. So obviously, I think if it's 25 or above, they split the section in half. So it awards 2 section winners. When it's below that, it's 1 section winner. So it's 23 teams, which makes a massive difference. You're talking 9 out of 10. You're talking about bigger points. You don't necessarily have to win. You don't necessarily have to come second, as when you're talking about 10, 12, 13, 14 peg sections, then obviously wins are quite important. I'm not saying they're not important this time, but they're not as important. So for a team to get the right amount of points together, you don't have to win. So obviously, bearing that in mind, we basically went to fish. Now, on the actual day, I drew E10. An E section was just before the marina of the venue, so it was basically a big gravel pit, middle of Belgium. The depth's all over the shop, and varies. You could be sat next to somebody who's fishing in, I don't know, 30 foot, and you could be next peg fishing in 10 foot. So there was a lot of, obviously plumbing up was very important. As with all these events, it's all about a depth. So finding the depth was, for what we wanted to catch, was obviously paramount. Now, a lot of the species weren't actually in the same amount of it in the areas, because the 5 different sections were all around the lake. And this particular, on day 1 E section, it wasn't, it was more of a gradual slope. Not all the pegs offered the same amount of depth, but there wasn't like some of the lake where you'd chuck out to 20 metres and then it'd just go off a cliff face. So it was quite steady. So obviously we'd agreed on looking for a 6 or a 7 count, a 6 or a 7 count with an ounce bomb, which we stopwatched. So, and the reason we stopwatched it was because that was, everybody counts different. The stopwatch then makes it generic for all the lads in the team. So if we're fishing in a 5 count, stopwatch 5, 6, 7 and onwards. So we use the stopwatch as the guide for the depth, and we felt that the roach was in like a 6 to maybe a 7.5. Fortunately, I had this depth at 40 metres on day 1 in E section. Now it was a section full of small fish. You weren't actually in the main body of the lake. So the fish that were there were the fish that lived there, if that makes sense. So you didn't have constant fish coming in, because it was a sort of a bit of a back eddy. So with that in mind, it was very important that I needed to see most, you know, I needed to see every bite, of course, but because of the size of the fish, it was different to the main body of the lake, and I'll talk about that a bit more. So on day 1, I was fishing, basically set up the 40 metre line, and I had a 20 metre line, but basically we were fishing for 1 to 2 ounce fish, shall we say. So the choice for day 1, and it'll become apparent, this will, as I speak to about it, the choice for day 1, I'd use the new Tournament S range. Now, and this particular one, this is a 12-foot one. And the main reason for it was because of the mega top. Now, I've said to you about the bites, the fish were 2 ounce, we were fishing braid direct. I needed to see every bite, every single indication you were picking up on, because you were fishing single pinky, single maggot, single caster and a bloodworm, double bloodworm. So everything was really, really important. And the megatop, this is the same one as well, a 3/4 ounce megatop. The megatop allows you to do that because it over exaggerates the bites. The taper on it, and because you're fishing braid direct, you know, it's the right tip for the job. And like I said, it over exaggerates the bites. Don't get me wrong, the bites weren't brilliant because obviously the fish was small. But if you fished a normal or a different quiver, shall we say, you wouldn't always get that. So that was the main important thing about the day one. I had, if I remember rightly, I think I had 78 fish, which on the day was good enough for 4 points. I got beat by the 2 end pegs, or the end and the next to end, further up the section. They both had a couple of perch this big. I think it was 2 kilo 6-1, 2 kilo 4, 240, and I had 2.2. So I was 40 grams off another point, which, you know, I'd have took that. Like I said, it's not about winning. It's about getting your points. And after day one, we had 40 points, if I remember rightly. I think Rob was in A. He come 10th. Mick was 4th in B. Who was in C? Lee was in C. Lee was 8th, I think. Stephen drew really bad. He was 14th and I was 4th. So we ended up with 40 points. Was I happy? No, because obviously we always want to win. But it's day one. You don't, you know, the rule is you never win. You need to keep yourself in the race. You can't win it until day 2. So with that in mind, we were 6th with 40 points, and there were some cracking other points. I think the Serbians were winning with an early 30 points, I think, if I remember rightly. So obviously they put themselves in a good position, but there was loads of teams, and like I said, with these 23 peg sections, anything can happen. Somebody could get 10 points, they could get 70. That's how the lake offered itself regarding the depths, what I've spoke about. So chins up. We had the draw the following day. Same again. We had two good areas where Rob and Lee were. I was on the same peg Sunday to where Rob was Saturday. Mick drew 2 pegs away on Sunday from where he was on Saturday, and Stephen was E1, which was the same section I was in on Saturday. So it was a mixed feeling, but you know, the thing is with these World Championships, anything can happen. And what had happened were that night it went down to, there was a frost. On Sunday morning there was an actual frost, and the wind, you could feel the difference in the wind on what they called the arena, which was where A and B section was. The wind was in your face on Sunday, and I was obviously on that section. And the day before it had blown off the back, so it was distinctively cold. Now, obviously you're talking about headwinds, and in the main arena, in these A and B, what they call the main arena, there's obviously bream, the roach are bigger, because it's the predominant part of the lake that people fish when they have the competitions. So got the wind in his face, and we were fishing for bigger fish. So you sort of related it to Ireland. And if I was getting a bite, it was going to hopefully be a bigger fish. I wanted to fish more positive. I was fishing with bigger feeders, so I needed a different rod. And the reason for that was like I said, because of I needed a bit more backbone, and like an Irish style match, which I was going to do, because we were fishing with 30 and 40 gram feeders. Even though we're fishing for small fish, the way that the venue was, you had to feed even to catch a small, you know, if I told you, you know, that we were getting through 2 and 3 pints of casters to catch 2 to 3 pound to 5, 6 pound, it's ridiculous really. But we needed big feeders, and of course when you're catching fish quickly, you need the weight, you need to get the feeder down quick. So we needed a tool to do that on the day with a headwind. So I used the SLR 3-piece. Now the 3-piece was obviously was an addition after the 2-piece. The 2-piece was obviously got some proper body, mid rod, and and you know, as good as it was, we use them for bream fishing, carp fishing. The 3-piece just gives you that little bit more in the middle, the little bit softer. But the bulk of it was about the tip, because obviously I got the wind in my face. The toe was quite bad. Now, if you're fishing, for example, with a toe, with a mega top, what you find with that, because of how it tapers with the toe, obviously a lot of the tip bends round, because obviously the taper. So with the SLI, because it's a 3.5mm carrier, the taper's different, so the toe doesn't pick up the whole of the tip. So yeah, you'll get a slight bend, but it doesn't tick up, and that's really important, because you could still see the bites. And like I've already spoke about, the chucking the bigger feeder. So that was the rod for day 2, the SLI that, and it went. The match was brilliant. I caught early really well, looking really good. The better pegs, which was a 1 to 11 that threw all the weights up on Saturday, weren't catching because of this cold night, and the wind direction. So it was completely different venue, and everybody who walked past, I did, you know, what's happening, different, switched off. So I just kept plugging away. And to be fair, it got probably an hour to go. I couldn't get a bite, and my bank runner for the day was Rich Wilson, and I said to him, because I could see from A10 and I was A23, so I could see 13 pegs, and I could see no one's catching anything. And I said to him, you know, what's if we catch a few small fish, what's it gonna, what can it do? So after because they have a fish count every hour, so he went and had a look at the fish count and sort of worked out if we could catch 30 little fish, then there'd be a chance of quite a significant amount of points. So I got up off my box middle with an hour to go, because the plan was we weren't going to fish for little fish, but I got up off my box with an hour to go and set up a 10-foot tournament S and just underarmed it, and I caught like 20 something fish in 15 minutes. Little asp, little perch, you know, probably caught like 300 grams, which obviously don't sound a lot, and it weren't a lot. But what was really mega important, when it come down to the weigh-in, it was ever so close. There was like 1 kilo 600, 1 kilo 700, 1 770, 1 8 something if I remember right, and I got to 1.9 kilo, which was like, you know, everyone was like mega happy, and I'm like, you know, I ain't really caught out. But that little bit of small fish fishing late on got me another 5 points, which obviously got me to 7th. So, and obviously if you've seen the results, it was very tight at the top. So just that little bit of thought, working it out with Rich, Will Freeman, got us the extra points. Everyone pulled together, lads did brilliant. So I was 7th, Mick was 10th, Rob was 2nd, did brilliant. Rob caught 7 kilo roach, had 100 roach. Lee had a couple of bream, he was 8th, and Stephen was 6th with 200 and some bullheads, which, you know, it's the whole team pulled together, and as it happened, we got silver medal, 73 points, 71 won. So yeah, it's a bit, you know, when you get to that point, it's a bit sickening. 2 points. All the lads said we all could have got a point easily, which, you know, I think anybody who says that they couldn't have done in the whole match wouldn't be telling the truth. So there was definitely 2 points to be caught, 2 more points to be gained, should I say, that would have given us gold. But, you know, 2nd was good. We haven't had a medal for a couple of years, so to get back on the podium was the main aim. If we'd have, you know, if somebody said on Saturday night you can definitely get on the podium without straight away now without fishing, we'd have snapped their hand off. There's no doubt about that. To come 2nd very close is very hard to take in, like I've just said, but, you know, it's a stepping stone. The way the internationals fish at the moment, and the European anglids, how good they are now is phenomenal. So to get on the podium is a massive achievement across all disciplines, not just feeder, float. You know, you speak to any of the float lads, it's all the same because everybody is so good at all these disciplines now. So really, really happy, and you know, I think it was a good silver, because I don't think that the pegs quite gave us enough chance to win, should I say. But when you're that close, you always pick faults with with your own fishing. You wouldn't be human if you didn't. But no, second, great result. So thanks very much.